Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping right into AI agents.
Yeah, these aren't just concepts anymore, are they? They're actually starting to change how businesses work.
Exactly. Think of them as smart software using AI to, well, get things done for you, achieve goals.
And we've got some really good material to unpack this today. There's a PwC report, some stuff directly from Anthropic.
Right, and that Liam Otley YouTube guide really helpful. Plus insights from Google Cloud.
For sure. And look, we know there's a ton of AI info flying around. It can be, well, overwhelming.
Definitely. So our aim today is really to cut through that noise.
Yeah, give you a clear, solid understanding of AI agents, what they are, how they tick, and the impact they're, starting to have.
We'll pull out the key bits from these sources, hopefully give you some aha moments without getting totally lost in the weeds.
That's the plan. Our mission, if you like, is to explore how they function, the different ways people are building them, and where they're already making a difference.
So by the end, you should feel pretty well informed on this honestly transformative tech. Okay, let's get into it. First up, what can these agents actually do?
Well, PwC, they're forecasting a pretty big shakeup in business operations, maybe in the next, 12 to 24 months?
That soon. Wow.
Yeah. And what really jumps out from their report is this idea that agility might become the key advantage, maybe even more than just, company size.
That's huge because scale has always been such a dominant factor in strategy.
Exactly. It suggests a real power shift. These agents could let smaller, quicker companies make big strategic plays much faster than before.
And TWC has concrete examples of this already happening, right? It's not just theoretical.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They point to areas seeing massive boosts, like 50% or more in productivity and speed to market already.
Like where specifically?
Software development is a big one, customer service too, and drug discovery.
Okay.
Even in fields like tax, they mention complex documents getting done in a day instead of like 2 weeks. In finance, too, gathering data analysis, even speeding up audits and improving their quality. It's pretty fundamental stuff.
So it's not just about doing the same thing slightly faster. PwC seems to be hinting at a deeper shift in how we even approach work.
That's spot on. They really stress moving beyond just, say, a 5% speed bump to talk about a blank sheet approach,
You meaning?
meaning completely rethinking entire processes, designing them from scratch for these new human agent teams to really scale up.
So the bottleneck isn't necessarily the technology itself.
Apparently not, or less so. The real challenge, according to PwC, is actually reimagining work, the workforce, the roles people play in this new setup.
That really reframes it. It's not just automation, it's transformation. Now, Anthropic brings another angle, especially on defining these agentic systems.
Right. What's useful from Anthropic is how they break it down. They use this umbrella term, agentic systems, but then they make a distinction
Okay.
between workflows and agents. Workflows are more structured. Think of LLMs, the AI brains like Claude or GPT, and tools being directed by predefined code, like a set path,
Okay, like following a script.
pretty much. Agents, though, are more dynamic. The LLM itself plays a bigger role, figuring out the process, choosing the tools, adapting as it goes.
Ah, so workflows of the recipe. Agents are more like the chef deciding how to cook the dish based on what's available.
That's a great way to put it. And Anthropic suggests, start simple. Optimize the basic LLM calls first.
Don't jump straight to the super complex agent.
Exactly. Only add complexity if you really need it. Because there's a trade-off, right? More complex agentic systems might have higher latency, cost more,
Right.
but hopefully they perform better on harder tasks.
Right, makes sense. Now, Lee Motley's guide, you mentioned it earlier, he has this really good analogy about hiring someone.
Yeah, Otley's analogy is great for making it feel real. He basically says building an AI agent is like bringing on a new team member.
How so?
Well, you define their role, right?
Yeah.
Give them access to the systems they need, the tools,
Okay.
and then you have to trust them to get on with the tasks.
Okay, I see the parallel.
But the huge difference, of course, is the AI agent works 204/7, never gets tired, you can clone it instantly, tweak its skills on the fly, and it costs a fraction of a human employee.
The implications there are just massive when you
Yeah.
think about scaling operations.
Totally. And Otley breaks down an agent into 5 core parts, which helps understand the mechanics.
What are those 5?
Okay, so first, the brain, that's the LLM we talked about, like GPT, Claude, Gemini.
Got it.
Then memory, both short-term for the current conversation and long-term to retain info over time.
Okay, brain memory.
Third is tools. This is how the agent actually does things, interacts with software, APIs, websites, etc.
Right, it's hands, essentially.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Fourth is planning its ability to figure out the steps needed to reach a goal.
The strategy part.
Exactly. And finally, persona. This defines its role, maybe its personality, how it communicates. Is it a formal assistant, a casual chatbot?
So you're equipping this digital worker with a mind, memory, tools, a plan, and even a personality. That's quite comprehensive. Google Cloud also weighs in with a definition, emphasizing autonomy.
Yeah, Google Cloud frames AI agents as software, using AI to pursue goals and complete tasks autonomously. They really stress the reasoning, planning, and memory capabilities.
And they mention these are boosted by generative AI being multimodal.
Right. Multimodal just means the AI can understand and work with different types of information, text, images, audio, video, all at once, which obviously makes the agents potentially much more capable.
And Google Cloud lists some key features too.
They do. They highlight things like reasoning, acting, observing so, watching what happens as a result of its actions, planning, collaborating with other systems or agents, and even self-refining, learning, and improving over time.
Wow, okay. That paints a picture of some pretty sophisticated systems. So we've got a good handle on what they are. Let's dig into how they actually work. Otley mentioned 3 ingredients for planning agents.
Yeah, Otley keeps it quite focused. He says for planning agents, you need 3 key things. The AI model, the brain, memory, so it knows the context, and tools, so it can take action.
Simple enough.
And he makes this interesting point that the top models themselves are becoming quite comparable. So the real differentiators, he argues, are often the tools you give the agent and how well it manages its memory.
That makes sense. The engine might be similar, but what you connect it to matters. Anthropic talks about the augmented LLM as the core building block. What's that about?
Anthropic sees the foundation as an LLM that's been boosted or augmented with extra capabilities.
Like what?
Like retrieval, the ability to look up external information, like tools, ways to interact with other software, and like memory holding onto context. Their models are designed to actually use these things, actively figure out when to search, which tool to use, what info to remember.
Okay, so the LLM isn't just generating text, it's actively using these enhancements. Now, Anthropic went into quite a bit of detail on those workflows, the simpler agentic systems. Can we break down some of those patterns?
Definitely. They laid out several really useful patterns. First one is prompt chaining.
Okay.
This is basically where the output of one LLM call feeds directly into the input of the next one. Simple sequence.
What's a use case for that?
Imagine generating some text, say a marketing blurb, and then immediately sending that text to another LLM call to translate it into French. Step 1, then step 2. Good for breaking down tasks.
Got it. Sequential processing. What's next?
Routing. This is where you use an LLM to classify the input first, and then send it to the right specialized tool or process based on that classification.
Like a smart traffic cop for information.
Exactly. Think customer support. A query comes in, the router figures out if it's a billing question, the technical issue, or a sales lead, and sends it to the right place. Maybe another specialized AI or even a human.
Makes sense for handling varied inputs. Keep going.
Okay, then there's parallelization. This is where multiple LLMs work in the same time on parts of a task.
How does that work?
2 main ways they mention. One is sectioning in a card. You break a big task into smaller, independent chunks and run them simultaneously just to speed things up.
Okay.
The other is voting. You give the same task to multiple LLMs, get different outputs, and then compare them or aggregate them to get a more reliable or confident result. Maybe one LLM generates text while another checks it for factual errors happening at the same time.
Ah, interesting. Building in redundancy or checks. What else?
Another pattern is orchestrator workers.
Mm.
This is cool. You have one main LLM acting as the orchestrator, like a project manager.
Okay.
It looks at a complex task,
Yeah.
figures out the subtasks needed, maybe dynamically as things change, and then delegates those subtasks to other worker LLMs. Then it gathers the results back and puts them together.
So it's managing a team of AIs.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Really good for unpredictable tasks, like complex coding changes where you don't know all the steps up front.
Right. And the last workflow pattern.
The evaluator optimizer loop, this is an iterative cycle. One LLM generates something, say, a draft of an email or a piece of code. Another LLM acts as an evaluator, checks it against certain criteria, and provides feedback.
And then?
Then the first LLM uses that feedback to generate an improved version. You loop this until it meets the standard. Great when you have clear quality criteria like maybe checking if generated code follows specific style guides.
These workflows seem like really practical ways to structure AI tasks. Now, when Anthropic contrasts these with full-blown agents, what are the key differences again?
The main difference is autonomy. Agents, in their view, have more independence. They plan, they act, they observe the results, they adjust their plan. It's more of a continuous loop interacting with the environment using tools.
And they might ask for help sometimes.
Yeah, they might decide they need human input.
Yeah.
But the key is they're making more decisions themselves based on the situation. Anthropic stresses that for these agents, having really clear tool descriptions and good testing is vital.
Because they're less predictable.
Exactly. They're better for open-ended problems, but you need trust. You need safety guardrails. You need sandbox testing. They cost more to run, and, well, there's more potential for them to go off track if not built carefully. Their example was like a coding agent tackling GitHub issues on its own.
Right. Otley really hammered home the point about giving agents multiple tools. Why is that so important?
Otley argues that's where the magic really happens. When an agent can combine different tools, search the web, read a file, update a database, send an email, it can tackle much more complex multi-step problems, kind of like how a human would.
Can you give that example he used again? Finding startups.
Yeah, like find AI startups using web search, then pull key info, maybe summarize it using the LLM, then stick it all neatly into a spreadsheet using a spreadsheet tool, and then email you the link using an email tool. It's that orchestration of different capabilities.
That really brings the power of it to life. And Google Cloud's view on the core elements seems to align with this persona memory tools.
Yes, Google Cloud echoes those core components. Persona, memory, and they actually break memory down further, mentioning short-term, long-term, episodic, like remembering specific past events, even consensus memory shared across agents.
Wow, consensus memory. That's interesting.
Yeah, suggests coordination. And of course, tools and the underlying LLM. The detailed view on memory types really hints at the sophistication they envision.
Okay, so we understand the what and the how. Let's talk building and deploying. PwC's advice was to think like an AI native company. What does that mean in practice?
It really comes back to that blank sheet idea. Don't just automate bits of existing processes. Fundamentally redesign functions around AI capabilities.
And they think the skills barrier is lowering.
Yeah, their point is you might not need armies of specialist AI engineers anymore because the agents themselves can handle a lot of the specialized technical work. The bigger hurdle, they argue, is the organizational change, changing structures, roles, culture.
That's a recurring theme. Anthropic also had advice for builders, focusing on simplicity and transparency.
Absolutely. Anthropic's advice is basically keep it simple where possible, make it transparent, let users see how the agent is planning to tackle a task, and really focus on that agent-computer interface, the ACI.
Meaning the tools.
Yeah, how the agent interacts with tools, good documentation for the tools, thorough testing. They even suggest maybe ditching complex frameworks for production and using more basic building blocks for better control.
Interesting. Now, Otley actually showed building tools without code, using Relevance AI.
Yeah, that was a great practical bit. He showed how you could build, say, a tool to scrape website content or research a company, all visually, no coding needed on platforms like Relevance AI.
And the key is you can then plug these tools into an agent.
Exactly. You build these custom skills, and then you can easily share them or integrate them into an agent you're building, giving it specific capabilities you need.
And he went on to build a sales co-pilot agent using those tools.
He did. Showed defining the agent's main goal or instructions in Relevance AI, and then just connecting the company research tool, maybe a prospect research tool he'd also built. It really demystified the process of creating a task-specific agent.
He also had that WhatsApp example built on his platform, Agentive, that showed agents working outside of just web chat.
Right, that was compelling. A customer support and lead gen agent living inside WhatsApp. It used a relevance tool for instant quotes and an Airtable tool to log the leads. It shows how these agents can meet users where they are on different platforms, automating real business functions like quoting and lead capture.
And Google Cloud has its own big platform, Vertex AI Agent Builder. What's the focus there?
Google's platform looks pretty comprehensive. It's geared towards building and orchestrating potentially complex multi-agent setups. A key theme seems to be building on existing processes, integrating with what companies already have.
What are some key parts of it?
They've got an agent development kit, the ADK, for building production agents, supports open source stuff like LangChain 2. There's the agent-to-agent protocol, A2A, aiming for standardized communication between agents. and an agent engine for managed deployment.
So tools for building, communicating, and running agents at scale, and they have something called Agent Garden.
Yeah, Agent Garden sounds like a library of pre-built agent examples and tools to help developers get started faster.
Hmm.
Sort of like templates and reusable components.
It's fascinating how many different tools and approaches are popping up. Even on Reddit, in AI agents, people are discussing what they use.
Yeah, those Reddit threads give you a real ground-level view. People mention LangChain, though some find it complex, but also things like LangGraph and Crew AI, which are specifically for multi-agent setups.
Any others?
NAEN came up for workflow automation, kind of bridging the gap.
Hmm.
Streamlit for building simple user interfaces to interact with agents. And interestingly, lots of discussion around just defining what an agent is versus a workflow. People are grappling with that distinction in practice.
That tracks with Anthropic's definitions. And Google Cloud also stressed connecting agents to enterprise data securely, right? Making sure they're grounded.
Absolutely critical point. Google emphasizes connecting agents to your company's data and tools they offer pre-built connectors, ways to use custom APIs. And crucially, grounding the agent's responses in reliable data sources could be Google Search, could be specific industry databases to make sure the output is accurate and trustworthy.
Okay, so we've covered what they are, how they work, how they're built. Let's shift to the bigger picture. Real-world uses and the future potential. PwC had some powerful examples.
They really did. They talked about agents managing global supply chains, predicting shortages, negotiating contracts automatically. Imagine that.
Wow.
And another example was a tech company using agents to completely reimagine customer engagement, anticipating needs before the customer even asks, coordinating internally between different agents for seamless, personalized service.
That sounds like a sci-fi movie plot, but it's becoming real. Otley also categorized agents based on interaction style.
Yeah, Utley made a simple distinction.
Yeah.
Conversational agents that you talk or chat with directly, and automated agents that just run in the background, doing tasks without needing constant interaction.
And his vision.
He sees potential for entire workforces of these automated agents handling really complex business processes behind the scenes.
Google Cloud also has a vision for multi-agent systems, improving things like decision-making.
Yes, Google sees multi-agent systems leading to better decisions because agents can collaborate, bring different perspectives or capabilities, adapt together, and engage in more robust reasoning than a single agent might. Plus, better problem solving on complex issues and more natural communication.
It all points towards a pretty significant shift, and PwC's concluding thought really lands that point.
It does. They
Yeah.
basically say, look, in 5 years, companies could look radically different because of AI-driven work. The big question they pose is, will your organization transform to lead, or will you get left behind? It's pretty stark.
So wrapping this up, the key takeaway seems to be that AI agents are evolving incredibly fast. They're not just fancy chatbots, they're becoming capable digital workers, reasoning, planning, collaborating.
Definitely. And we've seen there are loads of ways to build and deploy them now, from no-code tools anyone can try, right up to sophisticated developer kits.
The potential impact across industries is undeniable. It really requires businesses to think strategically and proactively about this.
Absolutely. So hopefully after this discussion, you feel much more comfortable navigating the conversation around AI agents. You've got the core concepts, a sense of how they function, and an idea of the implications.
Right. Which leads us to that final thought for you, the listener, building on that PwC question. Take a moment and think about your own work, your own processes, professional or even personal. Where could even a fairly simple AI agent focused on one specific narrow task make a real difference, boost efficiency, provide some insight?
What small step could you take just to explore that potential? Maybe try out one of those no-code platforms Otley demonstrated.
Exactly. Just something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.